Are you a people pleaser? There are so many people out there that are people pleasers, and trust me when I say from my very own experience as a people pleaser, it's exhausting. Let's look at some traits of being a people pleaser. So the first thing is you might have a hard time saying no to people, even your kids, when they demand you, or maybe they request your time, your energy, or even things that they want from you. You tend to agree on everything. You have such a high fear of not being accepted that you will agree on anything, even if you really don't really agree. You apologize for everything, or worse yet, you will take the blame for things, even if you did nothing wrong. Sometimes you might do this just to make the conflict stop, or other times it's just to please the other person. You probably have a hard time with self-care. It's probably not really in your vocabulary. You have a hard time taking time for yourself, or even spending time with yourself. Maybe you crave validation from everyone, sometimes even strangers. If you set boundaries, you probably have a hard time sticking with them. And worse yet, you probably get guilt when you do stick with them, especially with your kids. You probably have feelings of always being anxious, especially when you're around other people. You might have a high fear of rejection. You might even secretly resent people for constantly asking you to do stuff, well, that you said yes to. You might struggle with being genuine. You struggle being honest with who you truly are. And this was a big one with me. You're a giver, but wait, this is not giving out of love, kind-heartedness. The goal here for this kind of giving is acceptance. This is not really genuine giving. You probably have a fear of conflict. Even if the conflict has nothing to do with you, the fear of being around any conflict is high enough, which will send you into like a fixer mode, or worse yet, you might even blame yourself. And you're probably a perfectionist. So now these are just a few of the traits of a people pleaser. And yes, I can honestly say I used to have just about all of those. But I know from experience, you can change it. You really don't have to put this label on yourself and keep it there. Now, I will say I'm still working on this for myself, and it's a work in progress. So let's take a look at some of the effects of being a people pleaser. But let me preference this by saying that wanting to help people out of care and concern, love, affection, kindness, this isn't a bad thing. This is a trait that actually more of us really should have. This is not the type of helping that I'm going to be talking about. I'm seriously talking about the type of helping that we do because we feel obligated, because we want to have that acceptance, we want to be loved, we want to be whatever. So when does it become a problem? Well, when you do it for this love and affection of other individuals. We parents who are people pleasers have a really hard time with this, because as soon as our child gets angry or upset, throws a tantrum with us or whatever, we're right there trying to fix it and make them love and accept us again, and we want to be their friend. It's also a problem when you just cannot say no, and you end up feeling frustrated and overwhelmed, which then can lead to people taking advantage of you. Then you start to feel burnt out, which leads to stress. And if you are someone with chronic pain or a disability, well, this can lead to even more physical pain from the stress of worrying, doing too much. All this stress then can lead to high blood pressure, elevated cortisol. It's a lot. So now the question is, how does one change? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It's not easy. It takes time, it takes commitment, it takes a willingness to remove that label sitting on our foreheads that you have probably had there for most of your life. But listen, I've been there. And again, let me make it very clear, I am still work in progress. But I'm going to walk you through 8 things that you can start today to just kind of etch away at that label of being a people pleaser. The first one is kind of a compound one. So it's questions that I want you to ask yourself. And there's just a few, but I want you to ask yourself these questions right before you say yes to anything. And there's 5 questions. And I'm just going to take a peek at them. So let me just look. Okay. So the first one is, am I saying yes and doing it for the right reason? Okay. The second one, will it overtax my mind, body, or time? Number 3, is this action going to be within my boundaries that I've set for myself? Number 4, do I have the time for this after all my needs are met? And when I say needs, I also mean the things that you have to do, such as going to work, cooking, eating, just normal things. Okay. And then the last one, how will it make me feel? Will it make me feel resentful or happy? These are really important questions to ask yourself. All right, number 2 that you can do, one of the other things that you can do, and that I have done, is set self-care appointments in my calendar. Now that sounds kind of weird, but think about it. I set doctor's appointments, I set appointments for my kids' stuff, and so on. So I also set exercise, meditation, reading, studying, even doing these videos. I set these appointments in my calendar, and then I try to stick to them as best as I can. Now, obviously, when major things come up, I definitely will push them aside, but I do try to stick to them as much as I possibly can. And when I have them in my calendar and somebody says, oh, can you do XYZ? I can look at my calendar and say, no, I have an appointment. All right, number 3, remember, you do not need to get an opinion from every person in your life. Now, I have known people that will ask my opinion of something and then go and ask 30 other people. You don't need this. When you do need another person's opinion, instead of asking 10, 20, 30 people and then being overloaded with all this information and some of it contradicting this person's and this contradicts this person's, and you're like, oh my gosh. Instead of doing that, just ask 1, maybe 2, at the most 3 people. And these people need to be really close to you. And people that you trust, that are not going to just tell you what they think you want to hear. All right, number 4. Set boundaries. Now, we talked about that for a second earlier in those set of questions that you're going to ask yourself. Excuse me. What I mean here is actually writing down a list of the things you're currently doing. Mark the ones with a happy face that you like, and mark the ones with a frowny face that you don't. Okay, that sounds kind of weird, but when you start looking at the ones that you don't like, these are the ones that you need to reevaluate of how you're going to either eliminate them or change them. Let me give you an example. Let's say that your job is one of the ones that has a frown face, right? Okay, well, now you have to work, right? Because you need to put food on the table. You need to pay your bills. But that doesn't mean that you have to work there. So maybe this is a situation where you start looking for a new job, start getting your resume together, start putting out applications, and so forth. If it's something that maybe is incidental, maybe this is something that you can just completely get rid of altogether. All right, number 5, learn to say no. Well, that's the whole purpose of this video, right? But let me elaborate a little bit. Typically, when I would say no, I would say, oh no, I'm sorry, I can't. My daughter, she has band that day, and then I have to take her, and she has to be there by, let's see, 12 o'clock. And then right after that, I have a doctor's appointment, and then I have to be back to pick her up at 3 o'clock. And so, and then I have to go home and make dinner, and I just really can't do it. You know what? Nobody wants to hear all that, okay? No should mean no, and you really never should need an explanation. And again, I'm not saying that you can't say, no, I have an appointment. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about that long explanation that we give when we have to say no, because what we want is we want that person's approval that they're okay with us saying no. We don't need that. No explanation is needed. No means no. All right, number 6, try scheduling some alone time. Now, I know for you parents that have younger kids, this can be a little difficult. So consider hiring a babysitter, or even just asking dad to babysit for an hour once or twice a week. It's really imperative that we learn to be happy being with ourselves. Number 7, be more honest about your feelings. Now this, oh man, this was a tough one for me. So I want you to take one person in your life that you feel really comfortable with, that you feel somebody you can really trust. And I want you to start being really honest about your feelings. Now, I'm not talking about hurting their feelings. I'm not talking about being rude. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about just being honest. When your opinion is asked, you give it honestly. When your conversation comes up and you have a remark that you usually would just sit there and say, yeah, I agree. I'm talking about being honest. Then I want you to go to another person and start being honest, and then another, and then another. And you know what will happen? You will start to see that it gets easier and easier, and that it feels really good. And you know what? People will actually like you better than being just the yes man. All right, and my last one, number 8. If you struggle with chronic pain, disabilities, chronic illness, mobility issues, it's imperative to make yourself a priority. It's important to know just how much time you can give outside of your daily activities and routine, and not to go over this. Our broken bodies need just a bit more TLC. And when we overdo ourselves, even if it's just sitting, it can really do a number on us physically. Remember, it is okay to say no. It really is. People will not hate you for it. And those who are currently taking advantage of you will actually come to appreciate you even more. Setting boundaries, especially for us parents, seems really hard. But once again, kids and people will come to appreciate the fact that you're consistent. And when you do say yes, make sure it's coming from a loving, caring place, and not a want for love and acceptance. I'm Kristen Nitz with Big Bone and Broken. If you like this video and you want to see other content just like it, consider hitting the subscribe and the notification buttons, and give it a little like for me too. But until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and stay wise.